All right, welcome to the Self Help Workshop with your host, John Farr. Episode 36 Health Through Yoga with Marysia Do. All right, self helpers, welcome to the show today. Now, we have a very health minded guest. She is an international yoga teacher, expert, a student of the business as well. I mean, it's someone that I met and I instantly connected with her passion for life and for health. And I just thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about something that I love, yoga, and to share with our listeners. So without further ado, welcome Marysia Do to the Self Help Workshop.
Hi, it's
Hey.
really wonderful to be here.
Yeah, and it's great. It's great. It's great to see you. It's great to be here. And so I would just want to start a little bit about just this big idea of yoga, because yoga is something that I've kind of found. It was introduced to me through girlfriends, through various stages of my life, and it was something that ultimately that I had to find myself. It just didn't work. Practicing, with my wife, we got a little bit, but it was really something where I found it on my own, like through my own journey, and I never want to step into a gym again. Just give me my mat, or I don't even, give me my yoga studio, give me my yoga practice, and I think I've got it. I've got a path, and so I wanted to bring you on and just share your experience with yoga, a little bit about your story, and just kind of let it all hang out. And I think there's, I just want to. I'm just kind of curious to hear, your story and how you're able to help so many people through your yoga practice. So.
Well, I think one of the beautiful lessons that yoga has shown me in retrospect is how we are at one with all things all the time. Yoga means union. And when I started yoga, I did it for superficial reasons because that's where I was in my life. I was a teenager. I didn't feel entirely comfortable in my skin. And at that point, I didn't have the self awareness to think like that might be a deeper issue. I thought, like the inch of fat that I had on my belly as a 15, 16-year-old was the problem. And so I chose to pursue healing that. And I went to a CD store. I got a Rodney Yee yoga DVD, and I got a Billy Blanks kick Taibo kickboxing um, DVD as well. And I started there. And I grew up on Long Island where strength is typically more aggressive. When someone is strong, they're louder, they take up more space, and they dominate the energy of the room
Mm.
coming from that kind of a place. And when I watched the Rodney Yee DVD, he's on a mountaintop and there's lush greenery. It was just
Yeah.
beautiful. And there was this stillness and poise that I don't know if at the time I could articulate the thought in my head, like, wow, this is a different type of strength that I'm witnessing now and I'm learning how to embody. But it just felt good. There was something mystical, and I loved, there's an undercurrent for me at that time of spirituality to it. And so I pursued what my bliss was at that point. And then as time went on, what I continued to come back for yoga evolved. And one of the tenets that I very much teach and practice is non-judgment, in accepting ourselves in trusting where we're at in our journey and surrendering to it, we then give ourselves the space to evolve in a way that's more natural. I think a lot of times in self-help communities, there can be this idea of like, this is the right way to breathe. If you breathe differently, then you're doing it wrong. But what I have come to embrace is this notion of, how am I breathing? And just feeling into that. And maybe as I learn and feel the nuances of my body and wholly accept myself, then I'm creating a space for more compassionate and gentle transformation. We're moving into a place in our global society where that aggressive leadership style is becoming less popular because people naturally like to be taken care of and feel good about themselves. And it's a really fun thing to watch, this evolution that I see mirrored from my own relationship with myself to how I see leadership in, my husband's in the healthcare world and how he leads, and various beings, you as well, you're a leader, you have this podcast. There's a growing interest in a more unifying, gentle way to evolve. And that's a big part of what I hope to share with my students. I have had the good fortune. So I started off doing yoga as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to college in LA. And there I met the LA yoga community in like the early 2000s. And I was blown away.
Okay.
I mean, now I'm known for teaching advanced poses, but back then I remember seeing a classroom full of 50 people in low plank, the chaturanga position. And I was like, how can all these people do this?
Yeah.
Like, this is outrageous. And the physical practice was something I became more enamored with. But at the same time, the teacher was a lovely woman who came into the room and read a quote, and it made me want to be a better person. And I felt the energy of the other students, and there was this self-assured ease.
You're right.
And I think that energy was something that I wanted to be more of a part of. I was 17 when I went to LA for college, and I just thought everyone was so much cooler than me, and I wanted to be just like them all. And then I finished my yoga, or my college. I finished university, and I didn't want to become a yoga teacher because over that 4-year span, I had been very immersed in the yoga community, and I saw, like, in that, typical LA fashion. And I think in any yoga community or any community, when you're there long enough, there often is a level of cattiness and other types of little perversions that come up that you're like, oh, maybe I don't want to make this my job. Like, so I just kind of want to go ahead.
Yeah. So I understand all that. And before we get too far down, I just want to back up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And because I'm hearing your story, and thank you for sharing that. And so you said what yoga is. You said what yoga means. You said union, unity.
Yeah. And the purpose of yoga is moksha, liberation.
Liberation. Yeah. Because I wanted to, and I'm glad we're getting this, because it's, sometimes I'll just say, like, I'll ask a question like, what is yoga? Like, what's yoga to you? And so I'm going to just ask you that. I mean, you've said it in one word, but yeah, what is yoga? What is yoga to you?
To me, yoga is feeling universally supported at this point in time.
Universally supported. Okay.
Yeah, it's a union. It's an awareness that we are all one. And so whether it be me being stuck in traffic, that's the cosmos, whatever, that's the larger part of me, tell me it's time to slow down a little bit, or whatever it is. But it's a surrender and an awareness that everything is coming together always. It's all supporting the evolution into our highest self.
Yeah, well said. It's very interesting, because yoga means different things for different people. Some people look at it just as exercise. Some people just look at it maybe as just like like health and fashion, like the
Mhm.
yoga outfits and stuff, and you were kind of alluding to the community and how it
It
kind of
can be.
it kind of becomes
Yeah.
its own thing, and so there's a social structure, with anything like going to the gym or being
Yeah.
in a book club or something. And so I want to look at this at a deeper level because
Mhm.
yoga is you know all those things, but it's to me it's an opportunity, um, that's not quite the same as maybe as it's an opportunity for, like you said, expansion, and and just like health is just, just bodily health is just one of the benefits of
Hmm.
yoga. What now, would you agree with that? It's not just about the physical health, because you've said it's the breathing. And so I'm just trying to kind of create like the essence of yoga. And so like how, what how, why would someone want to look at this as maybe an alternative to going to the gym, or being, like someone say the gym's not working for them, they're not feeling as fulfilled, and like, so like, what's the mystery of yoga, like the essence that unleashes the magic, because it's obviously magical for you, and you're living your passion. You found passion through it, and abundance, and awareness, and other layers, levels of consciousness. I'm getting from you. And so that's kind of what I wanted to kind of tap into, is just like from yoga is so much not as a thing, but as a place of expansion, and of mind and body. Is that how you kind of look at yoga?
I mean, I loved everything that you said, but the first thing about how it means different things to different people, I think that that is very liberating awareness, just entering into it, because it's not like you go into the gym and this is to give you energy and make you feel strong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Yoga is more of an opportunity to also listen to your body. So I am very keenly aware that my intuition is of a much higher vibration and will serve my life much better than my intellect. And when we practice yoga, we have an opportunity to reflect on how the poses resonate in our body. So, where in other sports, and even in, I look at sometimes my husband with his work, he's like, how can I outsmart my body to work more hours?
Hmm.
Or how can I like trick my body to run faster? Whereas with yoga, we don't have that level of ambition where like my body's feeling a little slow today, so I'm going to surrender and be with that energy. And it's this process of making peace with the fluctuations in the body and trusting them. And instead of using the intellect to overpower our what we're feeling, we're practicing creating harmony between the mind, body, and spirit. So say your spirit longs for handstand. You just don't know what, I mean, this is what
Hmm.
happened to me. I don't know
Okay.
why. I just love this pose. It speaks to me
Okay.
in a way that my mind doesn't fully understand, but it's awesome. The process of achieving it could be, I mean, if you come from a more athletic standpoint, like you do this, and then you learn this, and then you learn this, and you do it every day, and that's how it's done. Whereas for me, because I also have a background in traditional Chinese medicine, I went to graduate school and I have my master's as an acupuncturist, herbalist. And there, say you have a headache,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a headache, and your wife has a headache. And, maybe you get your headache in the morning, I get mine in the afternoon, she gets hers. And actually, that doesn't even matter. Three people who have a headache, I wouldn't treat them the same way because you have different coloring, because your sleep patterns are different, because your appetite is different. Every body is different. And that awareness is a huge difference between Eastern and Western medicine, where we look at the whole system and what the outstanding symptom is, and we treat that outstanding symptom based on the whole. So if you want to learn a handstand, I want to learn a handstand, and your wife wants to learn a handstand, rather than just saying, this is the pose, this is a body, and let's make it all happen the same way, it's a daily checking in and a growing awareness of where energetic patterns in your body may be holding you back
Mm.
and where you may have natural gifts and alignment with the pose, and figuring out how to use all of what you are as you present every day to get into that posture. So it's a much more delicate process.
Yeah. Wow. Well said. So let's talk about one thing that you said that I just love, and it's you know, the poses. Certain poses just. I'm speaking from my own experience, and certain poses just feel wonderful, right? It's not just me, right? Certain poses just feel, like you said with handstands, it just feels great. And then
Yeah.
and then there's some that they don't they don't feel as good for me. But there's certain poses like tree pose, or I don't know if I'm using the right names. Obviously
Doesn't
tree,
matter. Yeah.
yeah, tree pose, or dancers pose. Now I'm a guy and I love dancers pose, and so it's like I just love dancers pose. I'm not a dancer. I just love that pose. I love, like, when I'm in that pose and it's my energy's flowing. It feels phenomenal. And so I think there's part of this yoga offers this connection to something deeper. And I think I've tapped into that in my own practice. And for me, yeah, I'll explain to you. You want to hear how I got into going to yoga? It's
Yeah,
pretty. It's pretty.
please.
It's pretty funny. So my wife, I guess, learned some yoga in college, and then we started dating right after that. She graduated, and she had the Rodney Yee DVDs. I might even be VHS. And so we were doing the Rodney Yee, and I agree. I love Rodney Yee. I love his quiet talk and the serenity, and the poses we would do, and I liked it, but I didn't quite get it because we were just kind of I was new and I was trying to follow them, and I just didn't quite get it. And then I just kind of let it go. And then after our second child, I bought my wife a membership to a yoga studio, and she said, "I don't want to do yoga." And I went, "Oh, okay." And so I'd pre-bought like five classes or something, and so I went and I just said, "All right," I said, I'll do it." And so I went and I started doing it, and they were like, "Oh, hey, John, by the way, like next week it's free for the week for men." And I was like, "Okay." So and then it was like, and then we're having a special if you sign up and you get like half off the first month. And so they just kind of fed me, but it didn't matter. After like the second class, I was just like, "Oh, oh, this is fun. I like this." And so I kind of came about it just, you know, just trying to give the gift of yoga, and it came right back to me. However, I was doing a lot of meditation, as I do, and I was studying a lot of personal growth. And I think I was looking for a way to connect with my body at a deeper level.
Hmm.
And I was really studying breathing, how to breathe through your nose, even like on a treadmill, just do all your breathing through your nose, not your mouth. And so yoga was transformational in that regards. It was an opportunity to just practice. It was an opportunity to practice all these other things that I was doing, and now I'm getting stronger. I'm getting more flexible, and I'm sweating and increasing my BDNF, and I'm sleeping better, and all these other things were happening. And so I wanted to just share my experience of like how that happened, and just see how you can so you can draw on some of those things. Do you find that happens to a lot of people once they kind of get into it?
Yeah, I think one of the most powerful effects of yoga is that you start to learn and notice the things that feel good. Like, and it doesn't have to come from a heady space. It's not something you didn't do yoga because your wife told you to do it. You did it because you showed up and it felt good.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of energy, especially as we're moving into a world where stress is, I think, driving many people very bonkers. And scientific information is not consistent person to person. And so we have less and less to hold on to. And I think now more than ever, people's ability to do what feels right, what feels good, is so important. If someone has been disassociated from their body, from their intuition, because they've spent their whole life fulfilling their parents' dreams for them, or just doing what is expected of them based on the centuries of stories humans have put on each other about, like, this is what, a cleaner is. This is because my helper at home, she has just gotten into yoga, and she was telling me how it inspired her to start her own
Hmm.
business, and how she's continuing to go down this path of empowerment, and noticing in her relationships the people who, when she's spending time with them, she feels smaller and weaker, and then there's other relationships where she feels brighter and stronger. And so I know that one of the great benefits I've had for my immune system is that I am very clear on what feels expansive in my system, what activities, which people, what foods. And it's not the same. Like, I think, we would love to have the control to know, like, if you eat this, you will feel this way. If you do this type of exercise, then you will have this type of strength. But it's not the way it works. And people need to become more self reliant if we want to survive. I think that's going to be an important survival skill moving forward, because a life without um, a feeling of living well is not one that's sustainable. And so I really, I believe yoga to be something that can help people step into a greater state of authenticity of who they were born to be before all these other ideas were put on them. And it starts with something as simple as, I love dancer pose, and celebrating that. I want to come back to yoga. My wife didn't like it. The doors keep opening. They want men at yoga. I'm a dude. I mean, even like, I have some students that I know started yoga because, like, they wanted to see girls in yoga tights, and like, that's what brought them
Yeah.
in. But then it changed, it evolves. And I think the practice of not judging ourselves, not judging each other, and create room for people to be more than just that guy that wants to look at girls'
Yeah.
butts in yoga tights. Like, that might be a part of
Yeah.
it, but that's not what it's all
It's
about,
it's
you
it's
know?
not. No, it's not. And you know, there's a lot of times I'm the only guy in the yoga class. There could be 15 girls, women, ladies, and they're all wearing tight yoga pants. I mean, it's it. They are, and fine. And it's once you start getting in the poses and going through your flow, all that stuff just goes away. It's not,
Yeah.
yeah, it might be.
So
Oh,
there's nothing
yeah,
wrong.
there's nothing wrong with.
Yeah.
No, I just look at it as like, I'm here with some great, in a room with great energy, and it gives
Yeah.
me a chance to to express myself. And there's one yoga instructor. He's a guy. I mean, he practically shows up naked. So
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, whatever, you do your thing. And so I've never got into the self conscious thing, and my reasons were always just better
Hmm.
health. And so let's talk real quick about the different types of yoga, because there's a lot of yoga studio. I live in Baltimore, Maryland, and there's a lot of yoga studios around, and they all seem a little different, different themes. Some focus on core and other things. So what can you navigate maybe for the waters of the different types of yoga, if there is such a thing, or is it just all one thing?
No, there's definitely different types. The more corporate organizations, you'll get more brand consistency studio to studio. So a place like Core Power Yoga,
Mm-hmm.
they've made it so that their students can go into a studio anywhere that they are and kind of know what to get.
Yeah.
And when I first started learning to teach yoga, that was something that actually someone had pointed out. They're like, your students will like it if there's a level of predictability. And
Mm.
like, this is what you get when you go to Marisha's classes. Um, and some people, really like that. There's, but at those studios, the teachers are not necessarily allowed to teach whatever they're inspired to teach that day. they have to fit into a certain mold. So if you are someone that gravitates more towards a personality, the more boutique studios tend to be more supportive of teachers just teaching what they teach.
Okay.
Um, some studios focus on Kundalini style
Mm-hmm.
yoga. So that is more about energy cultivation. There can be good amount of core work, but you'll focus more on chakra systems and raising your vibration. Kundalini, like the more traditional ones, they tend to wear a turban on their head to help preserve their energy. They wear white. It's a fun experience.
Okay.
I would suggest when you go into new studios, just suspend your disbelief, be there, do the whole thing. And if it feels awkward to you as you who you know yourself to be, just play pretend that you've done it 1,000 times before. Walk in and just like a little kid that's just reveling in a new experience, try it on. And then afterwards, if you like walk out and you're like, I don't feel that great, like this is a little too much for me, then you don't come back.
Okay.
Then there's like hatha, which is more holding poses, strength based
Okay.
yoga. Um, and then there's vinyasa flow, where you just mostly one breath, one movement in and out of poses.
Okay. Yes.
Most studios are a hybrid of hatha vinyasa.
Yeah.
So you'll hold a pose for 5 breaths and then you'll go through a
Mm-hmm.
flow. Um, and then there's going to be meditation classes. There's also restorative yoga, where you basically do 10 poses in an hour and lay around on props and just feel delicious. When I started yoga, I didn't really like that because I was young. I had a lot of energy and I wanted to move all the time. At this point in my life, like laying down on bolsters and just feeling my breath for an hour, it's so soothing for the nervous
Mm.
system. And that's something that I think in our society we're not as educated about, but the health benefits of down regulating, especially if you have a job that you're on screens a lot, which is very hyper stimulating, the opportunity to down regulate the nervous system is going to transform your life. Just having that awareness, it'll boost your immune system, boost your sense of well-being, and the ability to move through your day with a sense of ease because you're not in that heightened state all the time.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the yoga classes I was going, I was going to a hot yoga, and you'd warm up, and then you'd go through your flow, and it was a lot like you described, where it was very regimented. You kind of knew what to expect,
Mm-hmm.
and you might hold a pose for a few breaths, and then move to the other one, and you'd work up to where you was one breath, one pose, and you'd go through the things.
Mm-hmm.
And you always worked towards the end for like you said, like that, just complete relaxation, just not moving, just stillness. So that was always, I always enjoy. I always like, you couldn't wait to get to that part. I was like, all right, just give me the part where I'm laying down, and so you're saying there's actual sessions where you can just get into those long hold lay down type poses. Okay.
Yeah. So you walk in and they have you take, you know what a bolster is?
No, can you explain that?
So a bolster is like a pillow,
Mm-hmm.
but a little bit firmer and not as wide. So it's more
Okay.
like a tube shaped pillow.
Okay.
And it's usually filled with some kind of grain that can mold
Oh,
and
right.
take.
I got it. Yeah, I understand. Yes.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
so you'll grab those, a strap to, maybe put around your waist and link it to your feet for whatever reason the teacher may have, some blocks, and you prop yourself up in different shapes and just lay. And they're not ambitious poses. These are poses that are just nourishing.
Okay.
Um, in Asia, when I teach like the yin classes, there it's more of a ambitious, like let's stretch and create more space in the body in very
Mm,
specific ways so we can get into deeper splits or whatever.
you're right.
But in the US and in Western culture, it's more similar to restorative, where we're just kind of laying around and feeling our body. And some teachers like to create a connection between um, the acupuncture system and the Ayurveda system of lines of energy. as someone who went to Chinese medical school and also studied Ayurveda, I don't personally see it as the same. But at the same time, it doesn't really matter as long as it feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Yeah.
who cares what the reasoning is?
So thank you for that. And I want to talk about one thing is, so people that maybe aren't in the best of shape, and we touched about it before in a kind of roundabout way, um, self self consciousness, and maybe maybe your body's not in the best shape, and you might be a little self conscious, showing up to a place where there's a lot of in people with yoga, the yoga figures and stuff. And so how do you just what do you say to those people that are looking to do something? Yoga would probably be a healing, and it might help them with the down regulation, like you said, and then just breathe, get connected with their body. Like, what do you say to those people? Like, how do you get them to take a bite of the apple?
Well, fortunately, these days there's a lot of options for digital teachers. So I have an app as well. So if you are someone that doesn't want to walk into a studio not knowing anything, you don't have to now. You can wait until you feel more confident by finding an introductory online course. Or if you want to do it for free, you go on YouTube and just search. But I would suggest you wait until you find a teacher that feels good for you. And I would say, I would love to say yoga is a welcoming space for all people, and anybody who walks into a yoga classroom should immediately be put at ease. But that's not the way it always is. There
Mm-hmm.
are some places that, if you don't know people, it may feel uncomfortable for certain personalities. um, so you'll want to go into a studio, walk in and see how you feel. Starts with, again, that, and then also becoming aware, if everywhere you go you feel like you don't fit in, then it might be time to do a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
meditative work and start to realize the world is mirroring perhaps a little bit of some previous trauma or something else that's going on. So it may not be the responsibility of the space. It might be something that you may want to practice breathing through, and kind of daring yourself to take small steps forward to see that thing that I spoke about at the beginning. You are universally supported by all things. I know in my experience, like in Indonesia where I teach, there's this one bigger girl, who she practices right at the front of the classroom. And anytime she does anything, the whole class erupts in applause.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
Peggy. And she's like, Marisha, because I am fat, I think I can't do this, but I can do it.
Yeah.
And her energy is what makes her supported.
Yeah.
She's not dependent on others to fill her. She does her best. She knows she's fat and she feels fabulous. And it's that
That's great.
simple.
Yeah.
But that's not something that all of us have. I mean,
Yeah.
there's skinny people, there's people of all different types of reasonings for why they don't feel comfortable. But starting to be aware of the fact that you don't need outside support to feel good in your skin is something that you can start to cultivate through meditation and through online classes and things like that. And when you feel ready to look at someone in the eye, and if they give you a funny look, realize they must be having a bad day. It's not
Yeah.
because of me, it's because they're having a bad day.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for those stories there, and thanks for that. Just that gentle, alternative. There is a way. You go online, and obviously you have your app, and that probably be great if this resonates with them. Great place to start,
Yeah.
and don't be afraid to go into the studio. And it's and one thing I've heard through the years, this is going back decades now, is from various people, not a ton of people, but from various people, that yoga changed my life. Yoga transformed my health. Yoga, I was in a bad place, and yoga got me out. And I don't know if you can speak to that. And I just want to qualify that I don't think I think you get yourself out, like own your power kind of thing. I wanted to say that, but they say that they go, yoga transformed my life. I was in a funk. I was depressed, and it just, you've had to have heard similar types of stories, and I'm assuming, and I wonder if you can just speak to that. Some of these like life changing uh, things that have happened to people just from the simple practice of yoga.
Absolutely. It's something that, for me personally, yoga has been my best friend throughout my life. I have had various shocks to my system of being disoriented by circumstances in my life shifting in ways that were uncontrollable and extremely scary. And the place where I felt I knew myself best was on the yoga mat. And it's a place you can go to connect with your body and a sense of ease and well-being and familiarity. Um, it's a companion, I think, in many ways. And I know with my students, I've had people who, I mean, I was teaching a workshop, and I typically turn off my phone when I'm teaching, but for changing out the music, I didn't turn off the all the functions. So I went to
Airplane
my
mode.
phone,
Yeah.
yeah, and I see this message from a student of mine, and she's like, my husband was beating me, like all like this whole
Ooh.
page of literally escaping the country she was living in and running away in the middle of the night with nothing but her passport and her daughter to get away. And she she was being beaten by her husband for years, and she didn't even realize it until he hit her in front of her daughter, and then the denial dissipated and instantly, and she was left with this awareness of like, what am I teaching my daughter, that like this is okay. And she escaped, and she had no money, nothing, and she threw herself into her practice, and she has since become an incredible contortion yogi. But so much, I mean, that's not what I do.
Hmm.
I teach more strength based yoga. um, but her ability to feel good in her body, and in herself, not just her body but in her sense of her essence, her
Right.
it's a place where you can go to connect with who you are outside of all the labels and the things and the expectations. And again, because it's non-competitive, it's something that, she went down the path of contortion, and she learned from different types of gurus, but it's and now she's thriving. um, but it's a place where you can go and you can be whoever you want to be. And it's an opportunity to reinvent yourself every day if you like.
Wow. What a
Yeah.
story. Good for her. And that's an amazing story of just transformation. And
Yeah, I mean, and
yeah.
I have many students in the Middle East who've also, learned, in certain places in the world, we don't get to speak as women. We don't get to say this isn't right. Like, one thing that I think Americans take for granted is that we can demand justice. That's not a privilege that many people in the world have. You don't say no peace without justice, then you will never have peace.
Yeah.
And so the practice of yoga gives people a way to engage with maybe that person, their husband, or whoever it is in their life that is not giving them the freedom that most Americans feel entitled to, but they can find a new way of engaging with this, being coming from a place of understanding, like, this is all serving my highest good.
Yeah.
How can I show up differently to transform the energetics of this relationship? And so, and in those environments, the level of gentleness and care that has to go in to every interaction in order to become more empowered is something that most Americans really can't relate to because, we stormed the Capitol building.
Yeah.
We have opinions. It's
Yeah.
different. We have the freedom of speech, but in other places, there it has to be an energetic shift that comes by practicing a level of respectfulness for someone that may be very disrespectful to you, and learning how to shift the dynamic of the relationship by changing yourself is, I mean, I those stories are just insane.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's
Well,
I had
it's yeah. Go ahead.
I had a student who, she moved to Malaysia. She was born in America. She moved to Malaysia, and she married a Muslim guy. And while she was a proud Muslim, he was as well, but he went down a more conservative path and she went down a more liberal path. And he began beating her. And it got to the point that she went to the US Embassy, because she's a US citizen, and said, I'm being beaten by my husband. I have 3 kids. I want to go. And the US Embassy said to her, do you think he's going to kill you? And she said, I don't know. What do you mean? They said, well, if you leave with your children, he can claim kidnapping and you will lose your children.
Ooh,
If you can stand the beating, try to get him to divorce you, and then you'll be able to move away from this more peacefully. And so she had to stay in an advised by the US Embassy in Malaysia
wow.
to endure what she was enduring so she could find a way out that would not continue to disrupt her living well and her children living
Yeah.
well.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's so great to have you on to just get these international perspectives that as Americans we don't really have to deal with. I mean, you get pulled over. Yeah.
Intellectually, you
Yeah.
can't. So
Yeah.
go to your yoga mat, breathe,
Yeah.
be with where you are, and wait for the X factor. Just
Yeah.
make inner peace mirrored to outer peace. But it's not that take control, take charge kind of energy. It's that energy I saw in Rodney Yee, that kind of like subtle, soft strength that commands respect over time.
Yeah. And that I think that's you said it very well. It's that's gentle, strong energy that does demand respect over time. I mean, it's the it's like that ripened experience, from the practice of what you do. And if your practice is pure and supporting and expansive and healing, how can you not benefit from it? And so you said one thing you said going back a few minutes. You said non-competitive, and
Mm-hmm.
it's such a great place to be at, non-competitive, because I think a lot of times as people we compare ourselves to others, and maybe we want what other people have, and so maybe we put expectations on ourselves that we shouldn't, whether you can meet them or not. It's just it's about you. And I think that's one thing about I enjoy about yoga, and it's that non-competitive thing. And for me, when I started practicing, it was how quickly that this is it's like an open doorway into your inner world, physical world. It's like the whatever if there's a door, it's kind of open, or it's at least open a little bit when you start. And how you know breathing and just sometimes the thoughts that go through your head, and how you notice at the beginning of a practice where you maybe a little bit of the monkey mind is happening, and then it dissipates to just a more calm, serene mind. And so I think that's like the jewel of yoga is the all the inner work that you get from it. Plus, your body is feeling good. Now, so I don't know if you want to add to that. Do you have anything to say in connection to that?
Well, it's fun to watch students um, move from that competitive space to
Mm.
the non-competitive space, because it's so ingrained in us. I mean, I even see, my friends with the best intentions, when they're with their kids, they're like, come on, like they won this trophy or they did
Mm-hmm.
this. Like, look at this. We're such an accomplishment oriented society. And for me, I think because I got into yoga so long ago, I never felt that because I didn't know anybody else that did it. And I just thought like, I just surrendered. I was like, oh,
Hmm.
it's non-competitive. So that's the rules of the yoga, and I'm participating in the yoga. Um, but when students, like for me, the poses that I teach tend to evoke a level of comparison and competition where
Sure.
people will be like, oh, that person just learned that arm balance and I've been working on it for so long, and da da da. And the awareness that judging yourself just makes the practice more exhausting
Yeah.
is enough. Over time I'll say, like, if you can just go, from failure to failure, and be like, all right, and I'm going to try again, and I'm going to try again,
Right.
it's so much easier to show up. It took me 5 years to learn how to handstand, but that was before it was a thing, so I didn't have other people that I looked at that made me feel like, oh, they can do this already. It was a passion that I had cultivated along with my teachers in a fairly random way.
Okay.
Um, but these days where students will come in and like, oh, or, because I'm larger on social media, I get like the sad face emoji, like can't sad face emoji,
Oh
and they
man.
send it to me. Just like, come on, it's a
Yeah.
yoga pose. Like,
Yeah.
that's, who cares?
Yeah.
Your life will be exactly the same whether or not you can do the pose, but your life will be very different if you can continue to show up with the practice with the same level of supportiveness for yourself, whether or not you can do the pose. And the ability to hone your focus on what is working and how to process information as like serving you. Like, I'm working on it, and now I feel the energy in my hands better. Now I'm able to better notice what's working, or I can feel the engagement of my core. I can feel inspired by having whatever little thing that you can do to feed your energy, and also to have just the awareness of what it means to be hard on yourself and what it means to be supportive, and then to develop the ability to choose your thoughts, to choose how you engage with challenges. Um, right now, I'm cultivating a corporate yoga series, and the intention is to bring light to office workers.
Mm.
But for many of them, they've never even felt what it means to open up your chest. If you're spending your whole day hunched over your computer and on your phone, you don't even know what it means
Yeah.
to breathe big from your upper back and feel a lightness there. And so the practice of opening up without regretting what may have been in the past, and instead just embracing the forward movement is and sometimes it manifests physically, and sometimes progress looks like regression. But the practice of
Hmm.
trusting your process, trusting where you are, is something that doesn't necessarily happen the first class. It's a practice. If you've spent, you walk into your first class when you're 40 and you've spent 40 years of your life being hard on yourself and comparing yourself, it may take some time to reprogram your system. Um, and if you're, I hesitate to say ego, but if you're more attached to defending how you've seen the world before, it's going to be harder to embrace an awareness that you don't have to continue to engage in the world with that way. We tend to collect evidence around us that
Sure.
supports the way the world we already see it. The practice of shifting the kind of evidence to support the way we want to feel and live is something that for various reasons can be harder or easier for some people. But as long as you keep showing up and put your best efforts forward, that's enough. You don't need to get it right. There's no deadline. you
Right.
don't you don't get paid more. You don't get any award for doing anything in yoga. You just get to enjoy the process.
Well said. And I think that's wonderful that, the corporate world, and it's been coming for a while. They have that consciousness of that, you know, we're no longer working in the factory. A lot of the corporate world is creative work, and that you need to support a different level of consciousness, in these types of work. And yoga is just such a great way, in my opinion, to, support a person. And they say, like, like napping. Like napping is like, if you said to if you worked in corporate world and you said to your boss, "Hey, I'm going to go take a nap," they're like, "What are you doing? What are you talking about?" But it's like, studies have shown, yes, absolutely, go take a nap, and in 20 minutes or half hour, come back and kick butt back at your job. But instead, it said, like, maybe now we're starting to kind of get that as like, oh yeah, yes, there's a healing process. There's like breath work is important, moving your movement's important, and all this stuff. And so I think there's a consciousness that's evolving, and I think that's wonderful that that you're waving the flag in front of it, saying, yeah, hey, I got some tools that can help here. And so I want to ask you one thing about yoga, and I think it's an important question. Can you break it? Can you do it wrong? Can you seriously hurt yourself? Is there like a timeout? You want to start yoga? Hold on, here are the 10 commandments of a yoga practice. Because we've talked about all the benefits, and last thing I want to do is see some listener or anyone and anywhere in the world go out and try to do a handstand and then hurt themselves. And so,
Yeah.
Can you break it? Can you hurt yourself doing this? Are there things
Absolutely.
are there things to watch out for?
Yeah, I mean, you can get hurt walking out your front door. You can get hurt pretty much,
Of
just
of, of,
tripping on your own
of course.
nothing, on the phantom thing that was on the floor that you tripped on. But with yoga, I would say if you have a personality where you tend to push, um, enter yoga knowing that like your body is in your hands, and carry that responsibility responsibly. I think as long as you're entering knowing that like you do have a body that is vulnerable, um, feel and notice how you feel. If you're someone that tends to push past pain, know that yoga is not the place where we do that. And then also, we want to learn, though, the difference between hurtful and helpful pain. In yoga, aching, burning sensation in the muscles is fine. But if you have pinching, biting feeling in your joints, not so good. We
Mm,
don't want joint pain
that's
all around. Um, and also, you want to be able to move with a level of awareness. And if you're unsure of if this is helpful or hurtful, then just do less.
mm,
And once you prove to yourself over time and you've practiced learning the difference between helpful and hurtful pain and you feel more confident, take smaller steps forward. There's a saying, slow down, you'll get there faster.
mm.
And I think that that's a really useful thing. Like it's fun to dive in to things for many people, and if that feels good to you, go for it. And also know that if you do hurt yourself, your body's also a healing machine. Like that's not the end. That just means that you needed a little time out. And that's not a judgment. That's just how the yoga, the union is serving your growth. And sometimes we have to learn lessons that in the moment may feel threatening to us, but it doesn't have to. That's just how we're choosing to process the information.
Okay, that's great advice. And I think the underlining thing of what you said was listen to your body.
Yeah, and if you haven't practiced listening, then start small.
Start
Because
small.
if you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. And if you've been someone that is, especially like I have a student who is physically very capable and mentally very strong, and she started yoga over quarantine, and she's been doing so well. And then she sent me a video recently where she had a major crash.
Okay.
She's fine, she's resilient, but she was like, I think that there's a lesson here. And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, your ego is not your amigo. And because that's something
Yeah.
that I suppose I said in that class. And I think, you're fine. Be gentle with yourself, trust yourself, and at the same time, be responsible.
Right.
but it's not rocket science.
Yeah,
It's
of
just
course.
moving your body.
Of course. And so one of the great things about, the your app where we can access, your teachings and other people's teachings is that it's guided, right? It's all guided. Correct me if I'm
Mhm.
wrong. It's all guided. So you're not doing it out of a book where it's like, here, try to do this pose. So you know, and if you go to a studio, then you have hands on, hands on or hands off. It depends, but you have, someone who's actually watching, guiding, and you can be, you have one, you have a different layer of support there if you have a question. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah,
Yeah.
I find that to be, I think that's what I like most about yoga is, I mean, obviously all the benefits, but I like the fact that it's guided because I don't do a lot of guided meditations. I do all that myself, but I like yoga. I like the guide, and it's gentle, and
Mhm.
it's very helpful. So I think, you know, go at your own pace. So I think you nailed it. And so, um, you want to get to the workshop piece? You want to put a few steps out there for people to, if someone wants to try yoga, what would you say? They do. How to get
Um,
started? How do you get started here? What are your what are the couple ways to get started?
well, if you have a friend that is doing yoga, I think it can be, if you're keen to work with them, if you feel so inspired, it's great to have a personal recommendation for a teacher. But clearly that wasn't your path.
No.
There's any path. Honestly, it's the type of thing that all you have to do is show up. I think they say that showing up is 90% of the effort, and then the rest is
Yeah.
it just kind of takes care of you. But I would say if you're someone that's more shy or you want to just have a little taste, I mean, my app you can get for free for 2 weeks if you want to try, but you can also just go on YouTube, Google Introduction to Yoga, and get started there. You can get, like I did and your wife, we had our Rodney Yee
Mm-hmm.
DVDs. There's really no right or wrong way to start the practice. It's simply a matter of showing up and beginning to listen to your body and trusting your taste and practicing not judging your taste. If you're show up and you like this studio and this teacher rubs you the right way, well, perhaps your friend was like, I don't like that place. Just,
Okay.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about yoga. It is meant to be a path to liberation, to freedom. And that's the freedom for you to be who you are and your friend to be who they are. So it's really as simple as showing up and letting yourself be led. And if the voice that's guiding you doesn't feel good, find another voice. There are as many yoga teachers as there are practitioners interested. I mean, there is such a plethora of yoga available, especially digitally now, but even in person. And I would encourage you to maybe explore what it is that you're looking for from the practice, just with yourself, like why you want to show up. You want to have a greater sense of ease about you, you want to feel better in your body. And once you show up, you can see, like, did I get that from my class? And it's that simple. Starting with introductory class, the teacher is responsible for teaching you at a pace that is introductory. But if it doesn't feel like the right path for you, find another teacher or take a break from it. But like I said, yoga is something, I mean, there's goat yoga now, there's beer yoga, there's anything that you can think of.
Beer yoga?
Yes, yes, yes. In Colorado, actually, there's people
Is
who,
it was it a brewery or something? You
there's
go.
peers in it. I'm not sure exactly, but I've been sent a few links from my students about this. There's,
Okay.
there's no right or wrong. It just, you are where you are, and you can get to have the opportunity to enjoy being you and get clear on who you are without outside opinions telling you who you should be,
Wow.
how you should feel.
Yeah. Well said. So yeah, I think that's some great action steps. And is there any other?
Show up.
Just show up. Just show
Show
up.
up.
Yeah, show up.
Show
Oh,
up and stay a little longer than you may feel like it.
yeah.
I would
Don't.
say that much. If you get to a point where you feel uncomfortable, just linger there a little bit longer and see what the other side. There's a saying that the pose starts when you want to leave it, and I don't know that that's
Yeah.
always true, But when we transform, there is a level of discomfort that may come up. And the willingness to be a little uncomfortable is stepping beyond your comfort zone and expanding what you're capable of.
Yeah. And one thing I will say, and thank you for all that, is that in my experience, the yoga studios do create a very safe place. And if you're not comfortable, just just get down on your mat, go into a quiet pose, and then when you're ready to re-enter. And if there's no judgment, there's no this or there's no that. And sometimes, I'll do that, and I'll be in, say, child's pose, and I'm just taking a break, and then the instructor come over, and they'll rub my back a little bit. I'm like, oh, this is feels so great, or they'll deepen my pose, and I'm like, okay, thanks. And then but however long later, I'm back at it, and so
Yeah. I've never known a yoga instructor that didn't support someone taking a break. I think that in every class, and as a teacher, especially a teacher who teaches more ambitious poses sometimes, the student that takes the child's pose, I almost feel like they're doing me a favor because they're extending that invitation to the other students. And so by example, you're reminding the rest of the class, like, we're not here to push it to the limit. We're here to embrace where we are. And I need a moment
yeah,
to breathe and be. And I think that that's awesome.
that's fantastic, man. Well, let me tell you, Marisha, this has been a joy. I could talk to you all day. We could get into meditation. We could get into acupuncture. We could get, because there are all things that I do, I support, and I'm absolutely fascinated by. So, if somebody wants to work with you, what's the best way for them to maybe give it a try? What's the best way to reach you?
I think if you're a fan of social media, my Instagram channel is where I constantly post little tips and
Mm-hmm.
things like that, as well as insights into just living better. And that would be Marysia Do is my Instagram name. And if you want to try classes with me, go to the App Store, Android or iOS. You can just type in Magic Yoga. My app is called Marysia Do Magic. And the intention is to awaken your innate magic. We're all born into our own bodies. We're all creating our own stories spontaneously as we live our life. And my app has meditation. I have also guest teacher who leads meditation. She's been my guide for over 10 years. We have um, yin classes, beginner, advanced, journaling exercises. So it's a plethora of tools that you'll receive to further awaken and embody what makes you, your essence. And from that standpoint, you will continue to feel the union, the yoga, the being universally supported by all things. The more authentic we are in our nature, the more supported we are by everything that is of this world.
All right. Well, thank you. So there you have it. Marisha Doe on Instagram, or you go to the App Store and look up Magic
Magic
Yoga.
Yoga, or
Magic Yoga.
Marysia Magic is the name of the app, but if you just type in Magic Yoga, that'll be the first thing that pops up. I also have a website where we're redoing it, and I have actually a 200-hour yoga teacher training
Oh,
called the Light Warriors United. It's the first digital yoga teacher training that's quite like this, and I think what's going to make this teacher training, one of my favorite qualities about it is you're going to have students from Iran, students from Asia, students from Middle America, all in the same classroom, learning
oh,
together and
wow.
having just a much broader perspective of what this yoga thing is about, because everyone's cultural norms is going to enter the picture. And as a teacher, I learn what I'm meant to teach by listening and being with my students. So I do my best not to impose my ideas upon the group, but instead be receptive enough to feel into what we're here for and serve that, and create space for people to grow in the direction that they want to grow. So in this teacher training, you're not going to really learn to teach like me. We're going to create an environment where you're going to learn to teach how you are meant to teach, and you'll get to do that with just such a awesomely diverse community.
Awesome. Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I just got chills hearing you say that about the global reach of that training. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and
And
you get to do it at your leisure.
sure.
It's a 6-month
Oh,
program,
wow.
and we Zoom classes about twice a week, but most of it you can do on your own, and then we'll form cohorts of students that are interested in the same thing. So if you're interested in working with corporate people, then maybe we have one corporate person in Middle America and another one in Iran, and they get to hang out together and swap ideas of how they want to affect their students. People who want to do more arm balances, maybe former gymnasts and other
Hmm.
such personalities will get to hang out together. So it's this awesome environment where all us humans get together and figure out what this human experience can be as we wake up to greater authenticity.
Awesome. That's so good. We're getting tight on time, but I want to add one more thing here because this is just is so good. And this is a little bit outside this, but as a student going to yoga classes, I just want to say that the feedback and interaction with my instructors outside of the class, that I just want to share that to me, every time they facilitate a class, it's a new and fresh experience for them, and they're always looking for feedback on, hey, how did I do? How would you think of class today? And I was always one to give them, feedback. Hey, it was great, or this or that. And one time I had a teacher who I really liked a lot. I would really go to his class, but he would always like play rap music, and I just said, hey man, I said, not for nothing, man. Like that, I don't want to do yoga to rap music, man. So like I'm kind of gonna go out on that one, and he ended up changing it up, and so I gave him some feedback, and so just I want to talk real quick. We got our workshop activity. Just go get started, but just talk about the feedback of the teacher to student relationship, with feedback, and how open, typically, teachers are, and how much they enjoy that feedback from the students.
I think it varies person to person. I moving in I actually typically don't ask for much feedback. If a student offers it, then that's something that I'll take into consideration. But I came into teaching as a bit of a wild card in because I came into teaching in Asia, and being a white person, being a female that's very strong, culturally at that point, the revered teachers were Indian men
Mm,
who did not
yeah,
teach handstands. And, feedback that I got from students down the line was like, I never felt strong before, and I took women who were taught to do as teachers said and stretch and open in the way that they were taught to, um, instead feel their body, listen, and embody a sense of strength. But when I entered the room, the feedback I was given at first was like, Marisha, there's other poses besides handstand. And it wasn't aligned with who I was born to be. So as a teacher, perhaps my yoga path was to step greater into my own power as I had been supporting my students. That being said, if a student comes to me with feedback, it's absolutely something I'll take into consideration, and most of the time is valuable. Um, I would say as a student, though, typically, unless your teacher asks you for feedback, maybe don't offer it, because I think that just goes for anything in life.
sure.
Like,
Well, yeah,
you know,
I was trying
but
to. I was trying to preface it that these teachers were asking for feedback. They,
yeah,
they were asking for feedback, and so I
yeah,
was willingly giving them. I wasn't going just, oh, by the
yeah,
way, what'd you think? So no,
yeah.
I just thought like,
And that's part of the yoga culture. I think,
yeah, that's all.
in yoga teacher trainings from the very beginning, we're teaching the teachers how to give feedback and how to receive feedback. And I think that that's a very healthy thing. And if your teachers are asking for feedback, I think that it's awesome to be as open and honest as you can be. And if you're entering the conversation from a place of sincerity and love, you can say anything you want to say.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, that's all. I just want a little
Yeah.
context there. Yeah, they were asking for feedback. Hey, how'd you
Yeah,
think?
no, I heard you
Which,
say that.
yeah,
Absolutely.
they,
And I think that that's wonderful that you are there to support them in that way and help them grow.
yeah. I could always tell when they changed the music. I would always say, they'd say, "What'd you think of that?" I said, "Well, you changed your music." And they're like, So you're the only one that ever notices that, you know. And
Yeah, you're more sensitive.
I think
Maybe,
that's it. Yeah.
yeah. I I know that there are certain students in class, so, depending on the name of the class that I'm teaching will definitely dictate the type of music that I play. And when we're doing like stuff where we're getting revved up and we're getting ready to do something, I might blast Cashmere,
Mm-hmm.
by Led Zeppelin and just get
Yeah.
that vibe of like rock star energy filling the room. But there might be certain students that like really thrive in that environment and some students that don't, and not all students are for all teachers. And that's the great thing
Yeah.
about yoga. It's not personal.
Yeah.
You find someone that resonates with you and you find their classes that resonate with you.
Yeah. And that's been my journey. And that's been my journey. And so, yeah, I just wanted to carry over to the teacher student thing because that's one thing that I noticed.
Yeah.
It's been for me. It's been great. Just hey John, oh man, you're getting a lot stronger. Hey, you're doing this. Hey, what'd you think about what I did today? What'd you think of that flow? And oh, okay, sure, yeah, no, I thought it was great. Or yeah, oh man, you really worked me pretty hard there. Or you changed your music up and usually it's positive. That one time I just, hey man, I the rap was kind of getting me out of my zone, because there is a little bit of a zone I tend to get
Yeah.
into, and his music was always been great. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
just
And
sharing.
yeah, 100%. And I know, for me, even just the topics of classes, I love hearing from students like, what do you want to learn?
Mm,
And then, curating a class that's based on what the students like. It's more fulfilling, actually, and it's
yeah,
and it's in some ways easier because then I don't have to think of what comes next. It's like, what do you want to learn? All right, I'll figure it out for you, and that's that. But I think a huge part of what has created my character as a teacher is watching before I prescribe anything, looking at the bodies, seeing the faces, noticing the breath, and knowing from that point what comes next.
mm,
It's not an enforcement of like, this is what our plan of class is today. I may walk in with a plan, but usually I only fulfill like 10 to 20% of it. It all goes
yeah.
out the window once the students walk in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what makes it fun. That's what
That's
makes it
exactly.
alive.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to bring out is just, it's not this static thing that you just go and you just do the same thing every time. It can always be a little, depending on your studio, it can always be a little different, and there's different moods, and like on a rain day, the energy's different, and you can see the the facilitator, the trainer, the coach, whatever instructor, and they have to play with that, and it's fun. Or when there's only one person, I've been there sometimes. There's only one. I'm the only one there. I've had the
Yeah.
like, yeah, like that's like magic. I'm the only one there.
Like, I mean, this year with political movements and all kinds of things, like that energy, you can't help it. It's in the room.
Sure.
You don't necessarily, I typically don't like to comment on it directly, but there is a way to transmute that energy to make it feel cohesive by the time we walk out. If you are working in an environment where people get really into things that may not serve their feeling their best, or may continue to support a feeling of fear and um, suspicion, there's a way to transmute that energy in the classroom and still and leave the students with a feeling of like it's all coming together.
Yeah.
Like, I don't in my head understand how, but I don't need to. Like, I can just feel it in my body.
All right. So you've heard it here, self helpers. You can get the experience, online. You can get it, video, and you can go and just have a full immersion at a class, and you can even mix it up and do a little bit of everything. And the idea is just go, start, try it, and see if it works for you. And if it does, fantastic. So, Marysia, I want to thank you for coming on today. This has been very enlightening, and it's been a real joy to talk about yoga with someone that has such an international perspective. That's a great teacher, and just a genuine person who cares and who studied, you know, East, would say Chinese medicine, and you bring a very unique look into this. And so I want to thank you for sharing all your insight today, and hopefully maybe we can have you back on sometime to talk about some of the other wonderful things that you're creating in this world. So
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure. Thank you. I
okay,
really just enjoy your voice and your curiosity and authenticity and sincerity. So it's really been a pleasure to get to share and learn with you.
yeah, likewise. All right. So for the Self Help Workshop, I'm John Farr. Wishing you all the best. Take care.